Good morning and thank you for the presentation, Emiliano. Basically this morning I would like to talk to you about something which is a part of my forthcoming publication. I've been involved in a project of 2 years on the investigation of the digital governance of education. I will tell you more along, about this topic. So basically, this morning we are focused on the digital, on the relationship between the digital and education and the consequences of the digitals in terms of governance, of the shifting assemblages of governing in education because of the use of the digital technology in softwares, application, platform, and so far as so. So it is a very timely and topic. So my presentation will be different from the presentation that I gave the last year. I don't know if you are familiar with the presentation that I gave in the previous summer school. It was different in the sense that I tried to put in the presentation of this morning more about the findings of research, and also because the focus of my presentation will be about the theory, but in particular way on the methodology. Because one of the points I would like to present you is that, in trying to study, the digital platforms and try to understanding the changing governance of education because of the use of the digitals, there are methodological challenges. And so one of the things that I would like to discuss with you is exactly the kind of challenge you have to face when you try to research and investigate this topic as a sociologist of education. So I will take as a point of view of a sociologist. I will take a particular point of view because mostly I draw on actor network theory, but not only on this vocabulary. I try to expand, this vocabulary also to consider other things. So basically, this is, the kind of argument that I would like to present this morning. First, to go, into detail, I would like to introduce the topic of the digital and education by a little prologue. I will use two images of the school morphology. So this is my way to introduce the topic. The first one, well, here basically you can see a painting from a Dutch painter whose name is Jan Steen. And this is a very interesting painting, as you can see. It's very funny because, you can see, the description of a school of the 17th centuries. You can see, the name of this painting is A School for Boys and Girls. And it's very interesting because there are a lot of irony, inside this picture. Because you can see, a messy situation. You can see, all these students. Some of those students are really, annoyed. Some of the students are sleeping, on the table. For example, you can see some of them. There are some students in particular, you can see on the background, that there is, up on the table. And of course, there are, teachers, those two characters of teachers. One is a man and the other one is a woman. And so basically, this is the morphology of the school at the beginning of the, 17th century. It was a messy situation, a little bit chaotic. But, one interesting thing I would like to underline is that, of course, there is here the attempt to present, a space, a closed space, you can see, which is, quite characteristic of the idea of the school that we have in mind, usually. There is a sort, of, there is not the kind of, so this was at the beginning of the school as we know, as the classical morphology of the school as we know, with which we are familiar with, basically with the teachers, the pupils and the students. So this is, at the beginning of the modernity, basically, the time of modernity, so it was in the 16th centuries. So this was the first idea of a school for poor people. And of course, this kind of morphology goes on, and it was clear how, this morphology was acquired the classical form of the school with the teacher, with the pupils, with the bench. So there was a closed space, the typical school morphology. Then I will, present you a completely different example from an experimentation. I'm sorry about, I'm not able to pronounce exactly, but I'm asking for a help from Ping, from a case of school from Hangzhou. Hangzhou High School, which is, of course, is China. It was an example of a school I was really impressed, because in this school they try to introduce, it's a very, let's say, innovative school morphology. Well, what we are trying to do is to introduce an intelligent facial recognition system. Basically, this kind of systems is able to recognize the face of the students, and it is able to detect the emotions of the pupils, so that at the end, well, and in real time, this system is able to detect how many pupils are, in a situation of, of annoyance, of if they are, they are very angry and so far and so on. It's incredible. So at the end, the teachers and that teacher will have a dashboard where they can know about, anger, sadness, surprise, and annoyance. So you can see how, the morphology of the school is completely different, because there is a massive influence of algorithms, platforms, digital softwares able to detect the emotion of students. So you can see how, in this case, the morphology of the school is changing, and there is a massive presence of software, codes, platform, and data, big data, we can say, in real time about the student's emotion. And of course, the idea of this experimentation is also to test the capacity of teachers, and to evaluate their capacity to make, I don't know, maybe because it is a positively evaluated, the idea of having a very happy, students in their classroom, because they probably, the idea is that the more you have happy students, the more the school is going, well. This is basically, the things. Regardless whether, expression of anger could be evaluated in educational terms. So you can see, we are seeing a completely, I'm contrasting here a very different school morphology. So probably in the last example that I'm talking to you, we are in extreme case of a change of the school morphology, an extreme case. But I presented you this kind of morphologies just to, as an example of how, the digital is changing the space and the time of education, and how, in a way, we have, in the recent time, we are experimenting this idea of using massively the digital in order to shape the space and the time of education. This helps me to introduce the topic, which is exactly the fact that we have to recognize that we are in a time where the digital is increasingly one of the main elements of the governance of education. So, and we probably are, as some scholars have already recognized, we are in a time of the digital governance of education.